Warendra Sinha, who is also the MD and CEO of IFFCO Tokio General Insurance Company, to kindly address the audience. Mr. Warendra Sinha.
As the co-chairman of the Insurance Committee of the PhD Chamber, I take this opportunity to welcome our respected Health Secretary, Mr. C.K. Mishra, CMD of National Insurance, Mr. Sanat Kumar, my colleagues at the PhD Chamber, Mr. Sethi, Mr. Girotra, Mr. Khaitan, Devji, our distinguished guests from the Regulator's Office, Mr. Patnaik. I can see so many familiar faces, my ex-colleagues having done more than 3 decades in the general insurance industry, from Oriental, from National Insurance, and so many other associates. Ladies and gentlemen, a very hearty welcome to all of you. It seems I'm onto a dual role as a part of IFFCO Tokio General Insurance Company. One of the major concerns for the day's proceedings, I am also there as one of the panelists. Health insurance, from the 30 years plus that I have spent in general insurance, besides 4 years in housing finance, I realized that when you go for a social outing, the first thing when people get to know that you are an insurer, a general insurer, the topic somehow veers or rather starts with health insurance. There was a time when people talked in terms of motor. But now, looking at the kind of concerns that health insurance brings, it is inevitably health that people talk about. There are queries, there are suggestions, and there are huge concerns as to what the industry can offer in terms of a remedy. Having been an insurer for so long, my personal opinion is that to a large extent, it is a catch-22 situation. While the insurer definitely wants to keep the interest of the customer, that is what our regulator's office asks us to do also, to protect the interest of the policyholder. While trying to do that, we do bring our rates, our premium rates, to a rock bottom. But then in the process, at the end of the day, we realize that the numbers that we are saddled with in terms of our loss ratios are the kind that become very difficult for the company to sustain, I shouldn't even say healthy, a decent bottom line. So under these circumstances, with so much of schemes being funded by Government of India as well, when we look at our country's population and the penetration that we have made. For general insurance, we have a penetration of 0.78%, which compared to developed economies of the world, that would range at about 4%. Some are even higher. For health insurance, we are at a 0.24% in terms of our penetration. When we look at the size of the general insurance industry, last year we clocked almost 125,000 crores of premium on the top line. Out of that, the health insurance that was written was about 31,000 crores. Till year before, the health insurance was a solid number 2 in terms of the portfolio after motor insurance. But last year was a game changer. And with agriculture insurance coming in, with the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, coming into the fray, crop insurance became a fairly major player for the insurance industry again, clocking almost 22,000 crores worth of premium. So having given these numbers, in fact, I don't know whether this is the right platform to talk in terms of the loss ratios, but before coming here, I did pick up some of the ratios. And having been with the public sector for so many years, and now for the last 5 months being a part of the private players, when we look at the loss ratios on an earned basis, the 4 PSUs and the 4 top private companies, the loss ratio is 112%. And the COR, the operating the cost of these companies is 137%. So under the circumstances, it is a very, I don't have to even submit my case. But despite that, we are very earnest in our approach, and we're trying our level best to increase the penetration and to ensure that we contribute towards a healthy country. The topic that we have today is talking in terms of savior and healthcare, horizon and best practices. We've seen the government striving to provide affordable housing to everybody. The government definitely has set up hospitals at most places. But considering the population of this country, they are not enough. Consequently, if a general public person were to go to a public hospital, wouldn't find a place to get admitted. Now in the process, a lot of private sector hospitals have also, come around. But then the costs are obviously not commensurate with what, a middle class or a lower middle class person could afford. There are private nursing homes and hospitals, but then the rates are again, which probably is not affordable for most people. We have also seen that the cost of hospitals and nursing homes in the metros and in big cities is almost prohibitive, way beyond the reach of the common man. Now, if the government were to probably think in terms of subsidizing a little and ensuring that in the private hospitals, the beds which were going empty, if something could be done for that, is a suggestion in terms of a way forward. I would think that health insurance, it empowers the beneficiaries to get a choice of their health service provider, and which is where an appeal, since the Honorable Secretary is here, if something could be done that the private sector hospitals and nursing homes could come on board with subsidy obviously from the government, it would make a lot of difference. While as insurance companies we think in terms of reaching out by lowering our rates, the problem is that there is selection against insurance, and there are very few people who want to take insurance even when they can afford it. Unfortunately, shouldn't be talking again about moral hazard, but the tendency among quite a bit of the public is to try and take insurance when there is bad news knocking at the door. Otherwise, people who can afford premiums, if everybody were to come on board, the whole scenario would be different. Probably it would be a win-win for everyone. But these are concerns which need to be addressed. It is the way as insurers we talk in terms of motor vehicles. And we hear that probably 60% of the two-wheelers are uninsured in this country. A good 50% of vehicles are uninsured. So when we talk in terms of the number of lives which are uninsured, such huge numbers. We would like to suggest a product, with a sum insured of maybe 1 lakh or maximum 2 lakhs when you think in terms of the big cities. Because one does understand the premium which would have to be paid by whosoever takes the policies. But to my mind, a 1 lakh coverage in a tier 2, tier 3 city for a family of 4 or 5 on a floater basis would be sufficient to take care of exigencies of the regular kind. One obviously is not talking of critical illnesses, but which is where probably what needs to be revisited is coming up with products which caters to some insureds in the region of 1 to 2 lakhs. If we think in terms of rating of the package policies, an analysis will have to be done. One will have to look at what are the kind of rates which we would charge. Presently, up to a sum insured of 3 lakhs, there is a capping in terms of, I hope my numbers are right, I remember them correctly, that for a room rent, you do not exceed more than 1% of the sum insured per day. And similarly for the other, treatments. I remember maybe 20 years ago, the directors were very clear when there used to be a cap in terms of the room rent, in terms of the pathologicals, in terms of the surgical operation, in terms of the consultancy, and on so on. I personally feel that is a much better system, because I'm sure we have stakeholders from the hospitals also who are on board, but then it is an observation that when a patient knocks at any hospital, inevitably he or she is asked whether there is an insurance policy. And the next question which follows is, what is the sum insured? And thereafter, the room which is suggested is a room which is of a higher order, which attracts a much higher room rent. And thereafter, we all know that in hospitals, every other treatment, or rather every treatment, is commensurate with the room rent that is applicable. So looking at that, probably that's another something that we could look at. A small suggestion that I have always thought I would make is the concept of a co-pay, which is so prevalent in the Western world, in developed economies. Probably our people with their mindset would thereafter look at health claims more judiciously. I think with the kind of time pressures that we have with our secretary having to leave early, I think we'll wait for the next round of sessions. I once again thank all of you for having come here on behalf of the Chamber and our dignitaries. Thank you very much.